What's up YouTube, TCG Radish here, and today I thought I'd just show off one of my old Magic the Gathering decks. And I'll start off by saying it's a terrible deck, and it was a casual strategy that I came up with myself. And the funny thing about this is when I took this deck and gave it to people, most people couldn't tell how I won with the deck. And they would go through it and they're like, why are you playing garbage? What is this? And it was really funny to me, and the deck can win, but it's very vulnerable to counterspell. So the moment your Nauseam is countered, you pretty much lose the game. But I found this deck really fun to play with and mess with, and it's pretty much a troll deck. But yeah, let's get right into it. So first off, we're gonna run 4 Ad Nauseam. And what this is a black instant for 5 mana, and you can reveal the top card of your library, put it into your hand, and you take damage equal to its converted mana cost, and you do that as many times as you want. So the idea is you can dig as deep into your deck as you want, but you're gonna lose if you reveal too many cards with high converted mana costs. So other decks do run this, but they do things that make it so they don't lose when they lose all their life or something like that. But that's not what this deck does. What this deck does is pretty much all the cards besides Ad Nauseam are either really low mana cost or 0 mana cost. So you're able to dig through pretty much your whole deck and take basically minimal damage along the way. So this is the main card that we're going to want to play. We're going to want to play Ad Nauseam as soon as we can, and that's kind of the goal of the deck, and how it wins I'll show you in a bit. So the next card we run of is 2 Demonic Consultation. And this makes the deck actually banned in every format in Magic. At least the last time I checked, Demonic Consultation was restricted in Vintage, so you're only allowed to play 1 copy. But being the budget player I was in my youth, I could not afford it. And I guess I'm still a budget player now, but I wasn't willing to shell out more money for something for some searcher that wasn't restricted in Vintage. So I ended up buying 2 Demonic Consultations, which were, I think, 50 cents at the time. And this card is essentially supposed to find you Ad Nauseam because in a 60 card deck, a 4 of non-searchable card that you need to win the game kind of makes the deck kind of inconsistent. And we have some other cyclers and ways to dig through our deck as well, but this is a pretty important card, and a lot of the time, and pretty much they're going to be our 5th and 6th copy of Ad Nauseam. The bulk of this deck is artifacts. 0 mana artifacts to be certain, and if I could play Black Lotus or Moxen in this deck, I would. They'd be amazing in this deck, but I don't have the money and I didn't want a proxy for this deck, so yeah. So first off, I'm going to go through all the artifacts in this deck that are 0 cost, and I'll start from the most important and go to the more junky ones. First off, I've got 4 Lotus Petal. This is definitely the most valuable artifact in the deck since it will give us some extra mana to play Ad Nauseam as early as we can, and it's also important because it gives us the mana to play our win conditions once we've played our Ad Nauseam. So once you draw through the deck with that Ad Nauseam, you're going to want to find these, and you pretty much can't win without them, unless you wait a really long time, but hopefully your opponent should manage to beat you by then, if you did. So yeah, 4 Lotus Petal. Next artifact I run is 4 Urza's Bauble. Now what this does is it's able to draw us through the deck a little better. If we don't manage to find the Ad Nauseam or the lands that we need, we can use it and crack it to dig deeper into our deck. Next, we've got 4 of Jeweled Amulet, which is basically a 0 mana artifact that can store mana. We also run 4 Everflowing Chalice, which sometimes we can kick once to accelerate our mana. I also run 4 copies of Spellbook, in case my hand gets too large while I'm playing. And finally, the most useless artifact of them all, I decided to play 3 Fountain of Youth. And I also played Darksteel Relic at one point, but I think I like Fountain of Youth due to the vintage vibe of the card and the artwork. And since this deck played a lot of older Magic cards in it, I decided to play Fountain of Youth. Moving on to the win conditions, we first got 3 Grape Shot. This card is going to deal direct damage to our opponent, and it deals an additional 1 damage for every spell we've played this turn. So before we play our Grape Shots, we are going to play every single 0 mana artifact that we drew with our Ad Nauseam, which is basically going to be our whole deck. And since we play many 0 mana artifacts, and we're able to play them all for free, we're going to have some pretty big Grape Shots. I also have 3 Monastery Swiftspear, which has Prowess and Haste, and I can use to attack the turn that I activate my Ad Nauseam. It's going to get a Prowess trigger every time I play an artifact as well, and it can swing for massive amounts of damage if the opponent doesn't have a blocker. If the opponent does have blockers, Grape Shot can kind of get them out of the way so that Swiftspear can hit for maximum damage. Now for our mana base, we're going to run a lot of really janky lands, and that's going to be 4 Sandstone Needle, 4 Geothermal Crevice, 4 Peat Bog, and 4 Ebon Stronghold. Now these cards are all basically the same. They have some slight differences, but the idea behind all of these is they're going to be able to give us 2 mana, and we're only going to need them once, with some minor exceptions where if we're picking an Everflowing Chalice or trying to store mana onto a Jeweled Amulet, we might need them before we try to play our Ad Nauseam. But the idea behind these is we want to play our Ad Nauseam as soon as possible, and they're going to be able to allow us to do that. So generally, they all come in tapped, so we're going to play 2 of these, and then on our 3rd turn, we're going to be able to win if we're able to draw either another land or a Lotus Petal. And we do have untapped lands, of course, for our 3rd turn, and for that, I run 3 copies of a Swamp Basic and 6 copies of Basic Mountain. So there you guys have it. That is my casual, banned in all formats, Ad Nauseam Artifact Storm deck. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.